It was another bright day in Bengaluru, India. As Arjun pulled into Elements Mall and managed to find a parking spot surprisingly close to the entrance, he paused for a moment, letting the warmth of the sun wash over him. Its bright rays illuminated every detail of the bustling surroundings. The chaos of Bengaluru seemed almost surreal. Vendors calling out their wares, the sharp honking of auto rickshaws caught in thick traffic, and the hurried pace of shopkeepers weaving through the crowd. Yet amidst it all, Arjun felt a peculiar sense of detachment, as though he were merely an observer in this orchestrated frenzy. For a fleeting moment he stood still, watching the city pulse with life, each person immersed in their daily grind. He smiled and greeted people as they passed by, a cheerful energy lifting his steps. The vibrant atmosphere of the mall seemed to match his mood. As he reached his shop, he exchanged warm pleasantries with the other shop owners, their camaraderie a familiar rhythm of his mornings. Stepping inside, Arjun felt a surge of excitement. Today was significant. He had been tirelessly working on a major design for ABB, one of India's leading giants in electrical and automation. The thought of unveiling it filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. He stops as he hears a voice behind him. "Hello? Excuse me? Are you Arjun?" Turning around, surprised to have a visitor this early, he offers a warm smile. "Jihan, that's me. Just a moment, I'll be right with you." He sets his bag down on the nearby desk, adjusting a few tools out of habit, then turns to greet her properly. Standing before him is a woman, a few inches shorter than him, draped in an elegant sari with intricate gold embroidery, so refined that it makes his modest workplace feel like a roadside stall by comparison. Feeling slightly intimidated by her poised, stern demeanour as she waits silently by the door, giving him space to settle in, Arjun walks over with a courteous smile. Hello, how can I assist you today?" he asks warmly. Just then he notices her wince and bring a hand to her forehead, her brows tightening in discomfort. "What's wrong?" he asks, concern rising in his voice. "I'm not sure," she replies, her tone uncertain. "I thought I heard a voice and then my head started aching. It's past now, I'm sorry about that. My name is Arcadia. I've been sent to find you to discuss something that is, how should I say this, not of this world," she says, tilting her head slightly. "Would you be able to take the day and come for a drive with me?" Taken aback by the sudden and strange request, Arjun hesitates before asking, "Not of this world? What do you mean by that?" She smiles, a quiet mystery behind her eyes. "Exactly what I said. Some people have come across something very interesting, and I've heard of your skills. I believe you might be able to help us. I can't really say more than that. Not until we're somewhere I know we won't be overheard." After taking a moment to process what he's just heard, Arjun exhales slowly and offers a cautious smile. "Alright, so what exactly should I bring?" Arcadia responds calmly. "Just the basics, whatever helps you think. A notepad, maybe some pens. You'll probably want to sketch a few ideas once you see it." Nodding, Arjun gathers a small stack of papers, a pen, and his notebook before turning to her. Together they leave his shop space as they begin to head towards her car. As Arjun reaches to lock his door, he suddenly feels a light pressure on his shoulder. Turning, he sees Ardia's hand resting there gently. Her eyes closed and her face is strained, as though she's fighting off a migraine. Concerned, he leans in, using his arm to steady her. "Are you alright?" he asks softly. There's a brief moment of silence before she answers, her voice quiet, almost uncertain. I don't know. Did you just hear a voice?" Arjun looks around, scanning the bustling crowd of people moving through the morning rush. It's as if everything is happening around them, indifferent to their small pause. "No, I didn't hear anything. Are you sure you're alright?" Arcadia takes a deep breath, regaining her composure, her eyes opening slowly. "Never mind, I'm fine. Let's just..." Before she could finish, a sudden, eerie ripple of green light surges through the mall like a shockwave, radiating with unnatural intensity. It moved like a ghostly tsunami, washing over everything in its path. The light seemed to pass through walls and bodies alike, silent but devastating. Arjun barely had time to register what was happening before people around him began collapsing, one after another, as though the very life had been stolen from them. It happened so quickly, so silently, that no one had a chance to react. Arjun's grip on the handle tightened as he fought to stay upright, his body trembling from the aftershock of the strange wave. He looked around, his surroundings spinning, but strangely, he seemed less affected than everyone else. His gaze fell on Arcadia, and his heart clenched. She was on her hands and knees, her body writhing in agony, muscles straining and shifting unnaturally. His eyes widened as he saw her ears begin to alter, stretching and reshaping into something otherworldly. His breath caught in his throat, and fear gripped him as he took a step back, pressing himself against the door. Arcadia slowly raised her head, her eyes now glowing with an eerie, pulsating green light. Her hand reached out toward him, trembling as if begging for help, but before he could react, she collapsed. Her body hitting the floor with a sickening thud, she lay motionless, her chest rising and falling erratically. A chill of dread crawled up Arjun's spine as the air around him seemed to grow heavier. Arjun's gaze swept over the scene, his heart racing in his chest. All around him people were writhing and convulsing, their bodies shifting in unnatural ways, while others lay motionless on the ground where they had fallen. Their eyes glowing a sickly green, staring vacantly into the abyss as though their souls had already departed. He saw bodies transforming, grotesque and unreal. One man sprouted wings from his back, twitching erratically, while another's head twisted, horns sprouting like jagged spikes from his skull. Some figures seemed to pulse with a strange otherworldly glow, an aura that radiated raw, unbridled power. But the most unnerving sight of all was the pervasive, sickly green glow of the eyes. Everywhere he turned, those haunting, glowing green eyes met his gaze, empty and soulless, as if the very core of humanity had been stripped away, leaving behind something far darker. It was as though these vacant stares were windows into an abyss, reflecting a twisted, incomprehensible force that had overtaken the owners. The eyes, bright and alien, seemed to pulse with an unsettling energy, making the air around them feel thick with malevolence. Arjun's gaze shot to a nearby piece of polished metal, his breath catching in his throat as his reflection stared back at him. His heart skipped a beat. His eyes too were glowing that same sickly green, the same unnatural hue that now consumed everyone around him. Panic surged through him like wildfire, but he fought to suppress it, pushing the wave of fear deep down. Desperate to maintain control, his mind raced, his thoughts a blur as he tried to process the madness unfolding around him. The world seemed to close in, the chaos outside becoming a distant echo as his own reflection taunted him with its unsettling, inhuman glow. The mall was deathly quiet now, the silence hanging thick in the air. The green light that had washed over the space like a malevolent, silent wave had vanished, leaving no trace of its otherworldly presence. It wasn't just the people who had been affected. The usual hum of the electrical systems had fallen silent, the faint buzz of the overhead lights flickering out with a sputter, plunging the entire space into an unnatural dimness. The once pristine surfaces of metal, glass and plastic now carried a dull, lifeless sheen, as if the mall itself had succumbed to some unseen force. Even the digital ads, once vibrant with flashing colours, now stand eerily blank, their screens drained of life. Arjun took a deep breath, steadying himself as his engineer mind took over. His thoughts sharpened, becoming methodical, years of analysing systems and structures kicking in. It's like an EMP, he thought. A pulse that hit so fast, so hard, everything short-circuited in an instant. His gaze swept over the dimmed mall, the lights no longer full of life. Nothing seemed physically broken after the surge. The electrical systems were fried, but it wasn't just the machines. His eyes darted to the people around him, their bodies convulsing, writhing and shifting unnaturally. This isn't just an EMP. This is something else. His engineer's brain couldn't help but break down the mechanics of it. The wave is affecting the very biology of the people here. It's like a biological overload, an external force disrupting the body's core systems. His gaze fixed on the first person to begin shifting, skin rippling as though some invisible force was moulding it. Arjun shook his head, trying to shake the dizziness. His thoughts a whirlpool. What happened to me? Why am I unaffected? A knot of unease formed in his chest. Some sort of resistance? But there was no time to analyse that now. The people around him were changing, fast. Wings sprouted, horns twisted from skulls, claws tore through hands. This isn't some illness. This isn't an infection. It's like they're being rewritten. But by what? For a split second, Arjun felt the creeping dread of being utterly alone in the chaos. The mall, once a bustling hub of life, had become a silent, chaotic scene, one that felt like the edge of the unknown. He took a hesitant step back, his body moving instinctively, though he couldn't quite understand why. As he stumbled, he bumped into Arcadia, and the contact jolted him back to reality. Arjun knelt beside Arcadia, his hands trembling as he carefully shifted her onto her side, mindful not to leave her face down. As he did, he couldn't help but notice the subtle yet jarring changes in her. Her ears had grown longer, the tips now sharp and pointed, a stark contrast to the usual shape. Her eyes, though still closed, seemed slightly larger. He couldn't tell for certain in her unconscious state. A wave of concern gripped him, and he shook her urgently. Hey, are you okay? There was no response. Panic surged through him. Without thinking, he swung open his office door, his heart racing. He quickly slipped his arms under her shoulders, dragging her inside with desperate effort. He maneuvered her toward the couch, the only semblance of normality in this chaos. It felt like the tiniest comfort, but a growing unease gnawed at him. This wasn't right. Something was horribly wrong. As Arjun neared the couch, he felt Arcadia's body shift restlessly in his arms. It's okay, he muttered, trying to calm her down, his voice tight with concern. Just getting you onto the couch. With a grunt, he managed to lift her onto the cushions, his hands trembling as he carefully positioned her. Wait here, he instructed, voice strained but firm. He dashed to the mini fridge, grabbing a bottle of water, popped it open and quickly set it beside her. I'm going to check on the others. You stay here and make sure you're alright, Arjun said, his voice sharper than he intended, but there was no time to dwell on it. He rushed to the door, pushing it open with a sense of urgency. As he stepped into the mall, the weight of the scene hit him like a punch to the gut. The once bustling space now felt like a ghost town, empty, silent, and unnerving. But some of the fallen had begun to stir, their bodies twitching as though they were waking from a nightmare. His eyes landed on the owner of the shop across from his. The man had been chatting with a passerby just moments ago while opening his store. Now he was on the ground, twitching as though trying to rise. Arjun rushed over to him, his breath quickening. Going up to him, Arjun realizes he's become shorter. Helping him sit, Arjun says, Hey, are you okay? The short man opens his eyes and squints. Yeah, he says uncertainly. Yeah, I think so. Then jumping to his feet, he adds, I feel great, in fact. Haven't felt this good in a long time. What happened? He looks around at all the people, then back at Arjun. I don't know, Arjun replies. I was just about to head off when a wall of light ran through the place and everyone started falling. But for some reason it had no effect on me. Everyone dropped and all I could do was watch. People also began to change. I mean, do you notice it yourself? You shrunk at least a foot. Surprise registers on the man's face as he goes to look at his own reflection in the window. Shocked, he takes a step back and trips over the person he was talking to. Landing with a thud, he looks over at them, their eyes glowing a bright, mystical green. Caught off guard, the man scuttles backward, his eyes fixed on the eerie look on the person's face. Their veins bulge slightly and their skin tone is beginning to grey. What's wrong with them? He asks. People with wings, feathers, scales, both metallic and reptilian, animal horns or even hoofed legs begin to stir. A man towering at about 8 feet tall, panicked and bolted toward the exit. They were still people, but none like Arjun had ever seen before. Among them, humans who appeared unchanged were waking up, startled by these transformed beings. Worried loved ones and friends tried to rouse the unconscious, while others simply offered help wherever they could. What do you think happened, Arjun? A voice came from his side. Turning, he saw Arcadia standing there. Ah, you're awake. How do you feel? He asked. Great, actually, she replied. My head hurt earlier, but now everything seems so much clearer. I can see better, hear better, but... She hesitated, her voice dropping. I hear a voice. I don't know how or why, and I don't want to sound crazy, but something is telling me not to let my guard down. To be ready. It's making me nervous, actually. What do you think it means? Arjun asks, his own voice betraying his unease. Arcadia glances around, her thoughts racing as she tries to make sense of what she's seen. The scene leaves her speechless. Not many people are moving, but a few have started to get up, looking dazed as they try to figure out what just happened. Let's check and see if we can help some people. But be careful, the shorter man said, pointing to a nearby figure. Look at this poor lady. She looks like she's getting sicker. She was perfectly healthy a moment ago. Arjun and Arcadia turned to him, almost forgetting the shorter man was still with them. What's your name? Arcadia asked. I'm Rohit, the man replied with a smile, offering a slight bow. Pleasure to meet you. Arcadia nodded in acknowledgement. Well, we seem fine. let's check on others, Rohit suggested cheerfully. The three of them began moving through the area, but it quickly became clear that most of the people they checked wouldn't respond. They remained limp, staring blankly into the abyss with those same glowing green eyes. Minutes passed as Arjun, Adya and Rohit continued checking on those around them, their unease growing with every lifeless gaze they encountered. They tried speaking to others who had woken up, but most were too frightened, some reacting in shock at their new appearances, while others were paralysed with despair as their loved ones remained unresponsive, no matter how hard they tried to wake them. Along the way they found a few others willing to follow, hesitant but seeking safety in numbers amongst the chaos. More minutes passed before they slowly gathered around Arjun's office. One by one they introduced themselves, their voices trembling with confusion and unease. 7 of them now stood together, strangers bound by the same inexplicable disaster, each searching for answers in the chaos. Among the group was a young man in his early 20s, Manish, who had been training to play cricket professionally. He had just picked up a custom bat his father had made for him as a gift. Priya, a sad and quiet 7-year-old girl, sat close to her mother who lay motionless on the floor with glowing green eyes. Her mother's skin appeared to be draining, becoming frail and lifeless. Priya had been brought along with the group to keep her from feeling so alone amidst the chaos. Kavita, a strange and excitable 31-year-old paramedic with a penchant for adrenaline, who seemed almost too enthusiastic about the recent events. Then there was Akira Ota, a 45-year-old former engineer who now spent her days travelling the world, seeking to absorb as much of its beauty and culture as she could. A few moments passed as they talk amongst themselves, exchanging introductions and discussing various theories and their situation in general. Arjun, noticing a growing tension after explaining his breakdown of the situation, calls for their attention and gestures towards his office. He encourages them to step inside, assuring them there are fresh bottles of water and some snacks to help them relax, while they assess the situation together. As the group begins to move toward his office, a deep anguished cry pierces through the air. Off to the side, the man they had approached earlier, who had been clutching his wife's limp, unresponsive body with tears streaming down his face, now shouts desperately, "Help! Please! Someone! She's awake! She's moving! Please, someone help me! I thought she was dead! Oh, my love! I thought I'd lost you!" As the group glance down the mall, past the scattered bodies, they spot the man cradling his wife tightly. Noticing their attention, he calls out, his voice trembling with a mix of panic and relief. "Please, can you help me lift her? I need to get her somewhere more comfortable." Taken aback by the sudden turn of events, the group hesitates for a moment before splitting. Kavita and Manish quickly make their way toward the man, while the little girl clings to Akira, who gently comforts her as they head inside. Arjun moves to settle them in, ensuring they feel comfortable. Arjun and Rohit watch from the doorway as the yelling subsides and the man begins to take hesitant steps backwards. Concern flickers across their faces as they notice Manish and Kavita halting midway between them and the man, uncertainty lingering in the air. Wondering why, Adya and Rohit take a few steps closer. Their eyes widen as they see the woman stir from where her husband had left her. She slowly rises, turning towards him as he begins to retreat. Before they can react, she lets out a guttural scream and charges them. In a blur of motion, she grabs him and hurls him into the nearby wall with a sickening thud. His limp body crumples to the ground and she doesn't stop. She rushes over to him and begins pounding fist after fist into his already limp form. After witnessing the vicious display, Manish and Kavita break into a sprint, rushing back toward Arjun's office. As they run, they shout, "Look out!" Turning around, Rohit sees the body next to them stir. The person groans, their chest heaving as they rise to their feet. With a guttural growl, the figure launches itself at Adya, teeth bared and eyes glowing with hatred. Moving with a grace that surprises even herself, Adya swiftly maneuvers out of the way just as the person crashes into the wall behind them. Sickening crunch echoes through the air as their body thuds against the concrete and drops to the floor, twitching. Rohit hurries Adya towards the office, both of them noticing with growing horror that all the other bodies are beginning to twitch and shift, slowly starting to rise. Arjun, having heard the sickening crunch, rushes out of the office to see Manish and Kavita sprinting toward them. His eyes widen as he watches the creature that launched at Adya and Rohit stir once again. As Rohit and Adya rush inside, Arjun watches as Kavita delivers a quick and graceful kick to the creature's head with a smile, sending it snapping back before she runs inside, followed by Manish and Arjun, who swiftly closes the door behind them. What the hell was that? Arjun hisses, his voice sharp with panic, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. What are they? What's happening? Seeing the panic rising in Arjun, Rohit places a calming hand on his shoulder. Take a deep breath, my friend. Be calm, he says with a smile. Without a warning, a deep guttural roar erupts, one that sends chills crawling up their spines. It's followed by an explosion of chaos. Screams begin to echo through the mall as those who hadn't yet noticed the first few zombies rising are caught off guard. One by one, they begin to stir, shambling to their feet, while the sound of terror spreads across the 5-story mall. The once bustling shopping centre, home to a movie theatre that could house over 1,300 people on its own, now becomes a cacophony of panic. A stunned silence falls over the group, accentuated by the screams, sickening thuds, the crack of gunfire and distant explosions. The mall's darkness amplifies the chaos, making every sound sharper, every movement more terrifying. Arcadia and Rohit peer through the windows, watching flickers of flame from one side and purple lights flashing on the other. The creatures stumble through the hall, their eyes glowing green, filling their sockets with an unnatural light. Their skin is a tight, greyish necrosis, but they are still horrifyingly functional. They move quickly, yet their coordination is limited, reacting instinctively to the flashing lights and panicked shouts. Nothing seems to affect these creatures. People caught in the open try to defend themselves, but are quickly overwhelmed. Amidst the chaos, they spot a woman backed into a corner, fear etched onto her face as the creatures close in. With a trembling breath, she raises her hands, her body beginning to glow with a fierce energy. A loud crack reverberates through the air as the nearest creatures are sent flying backward by some kind of power, but the noise only draws more toward her, and despite her desperate efforts, she is quickly overtaken. Suddenly, they recoil as a blast of fire erupts from a nearby shop. The intense flash of light startles them, and the flames collide with two creatures standing outside, setting them ablaze. Yet, to their horror, the creatures seem barely affected. They stagger into the open shop front where the fire had originated, disappearing from view. A brief moment of silence passes before a man emerges, his shining metal wings flexing and his sharp spear-like talons dripping with blood and gore.